Okay, so hopefully you guys are working on your current assignment. As we discussed, you'll be completing the university application. Okay, and of course you will be adding more classes. Okay, so now how to submit the assignments. Okay, I remember on the website there's already a URL for, I forgot, it was like CS440 fall 2015, is that right? Yes. At yahoo.com. Okay, so anyway, so what you will do is you will zip your project, and you will also add a small Word document with screenshots. And so this does not have to be too big, just a few pages or one page, depending upon how complex the assignment is. Okay, and you should also mention the status of your assignment. Completely working, or there are some errors, okay, or partially working. Okay, if you did any enhancements, so for example, if you went beyond the requirements and you did some extra enhancements, so make sure you mention those so that the graduate assistant can appropriately grade it and give you the due credit. So anyway, so put the Word document and also your source code. So this will go as a zip file, and then send it to, and once you send the zip file, sometimes you simply will say, the file name will say assignment1.zip. So my suggestion is also name the file so that you could be easily identified. So if you can also, instead of like this, if you can say assignment1 underscore your ID, whatever, 983526 underscore, whatever your name is, okay, .zip. Okay, so this way it would be easy for us to track who submitted the assignment, what date it was submitted, and so on. Okay. Any questions on the current assignment? Everybody feels comfortable with the keywords that we discussed. So as far as object-oriented programming is concerned, remember we said encapsulation is one of the key ideas, and this is easy. This is basically creating classes. And once we create a class, of course, we have private keyword, we have public keyword, we have protected keyword, right? So hopefully everybody understands. Both the data as well as the functions as well as the class itself could be marked private or public, okay? So if you create a class XYZ, if you declared some, let's say, string first name, okay, and somewhere over here you have something, let's say public double, let's say compute pay, right? Okay, so as far as data is concerned, meaning the variables inside the class, what is the best practice from object-oriented point of view? Keep it private or public? Private, right? And the default is private anyway, so that even if we don't write, it will be private, right? Any method that we write, remember method is another name for a function inside a class. Okay, functions will be usually public, right? Okay, sometimes If we don't want this to be available outside of the class, we will mark it as the function also as private. Okay, but most of the time, the data will be private inside the class, and the functions will be public, right? When do we mark this as protected?
When it has to be accessed outside of.
So if there was a derived class, for example, we created another class called, let's say, manager, and it inherits from XYZ, right? And somewhere over here, we have some function, let's pretend, and this function wanted to access the first name. So if it was marked private, okay, then obviously we will not be able to read this data over here, so that's the time this will be protected so that the derived class can easily access it, right? So again, these are basic object-oriented concepts. So all of these concepts of private, public, protected are part in creating the class itself, are part of the encapsulation idea. Okay? Now, as I mentioned briefly, the class itself can be marked private or public, but not protected. Okay? So why do we want them mark the class private or public? Even if we don't mark anything, what will be the default visibility of this class? Private. Okay, so again, so at the class level, what does private public mean? See, at the data level, at the function level, it makes sense that from the outside of the function, can we call this, can we access this data? But what about the class itself? Okay, see, when you create a project, in a project you'll be creating many classes, right? For example, let's take a look at our university assignment. You are creating student, grad student, and so on, right? So all these classes, however many you create, right, they are compiled, and once they get compiled, they go into a single file, okay, which is the exe, executable file, or sometimes if we compile it as a library, it could be in a DLL file, right? So the compiled code will go into a single file, exe or DLL, depending upon how we compile it. So far, everything we are doing, we are creating a project, so it will go as an exe file. So that compiled file is also called the assembly. Okay, so sometimes, as our projects get bigger and bigger, we create many assemblies inside of our project, meaning there could be many executables or DLLs in our project. Okay, so let's say this is one project, here's another project, okay, which is part of a bigger project. So what if it wanted to access and create an object of this class? So create an object of a class which is declared in a different assembly. Okay? So if it was marked private, what will happen? Will we be able to create this object of this class in a different project or a different assembly? No. Okay, so that's why at the class level also we have private and public, and gradually as we make as I show you how to create DLLs and bigger projects, then we'll worry about this part. Okay, for right now, all classes within the project, so all classes within the project, they can see each other because they are part of the same project. So even with the private or no keyword over here, it's perfectly okay. However, outside the project, these classes will not be available. Okay. Okay, so now let's go, where's the eraser? So now let's go to the second concept over here in object-oriented programming, basic object-oriented programming. That's what we are reviewing right now. Okay, next concept was inheritance, right? So as you guys saw from the last example, inheritance only makes sense when many classes are involved. Right? If you created a project with a single class, then obviously there's no inheritance. So Purpose of inheritance, as you saw, was to write less code, right? Okay, in the technical terminology, we also say or to promote code reuse. Okay. So because if we are creating a large project, the less code we have, overall less code, the easier it is to maintain, easier it is even to create the whole thing, right? So that's where we discussed that in the beginning, nobody knows what classes to create, how the inheritance will work. We all gradually discover ourselves, refactor the code, meaning readjust the hierarchy of the classes and their relationship. So hopefully through this example you guys saw what was the starting point. If you are given a new project to create, the starting point will always be what are the real classes or real entities that exist in real life. Okay. So for example, if you're creating a university project, it's the undergraduate students, grad students, PhD students, part-time students. Those are the ones that exist, right? For example, let's say if you're creating a human resources application, right? Then where will you start? Okay, again, you will try to identify for whatever organization you are creating the HR application for. What are the different types of employees? Because purpose of HR is to coordinate all the employees. What are the different types of employees that exist, right? So starting from, let's say this is a technical organization. There might be, for example, a programmer as one of the jobs. There might be senior developer. There might be a project manager, right? There might be a vice president of a division, right? And so on. So basically, once you've identified these are the actual people that work in the organization and these are the categories or their titles, then you'll start creating classes for each one of these. And then pretty soon you'll discover you're repeating things and you'll move them to the base class, right? Okay, so after we are done with inheritance, one of the keywords that we run into, as you guys saw over here, so some of the keywords that we run into were